I used to steal and snort my mom's painkillers. What did you do as a teenager that you will never tell your parents? All those times I sarcastically answered smoke the reefer to the question of what I was going out to do, I was actually telling the truth. I legit used Photoshop to change my grades on a bad report card once. They never figured it out. My mom still recalls this one day when I was unusually positive and talkative with her. It's because I was high out of my mind on Ritalin. I really didn't want to do PE one day, but I didn't have a good reason, so I knew my dad wouldn't write me a note. So what I did instead was get a plain piece of paper and asked him to sign it, because we are doing a thing in English where we try to guess the personality of a person from their signature, which he totally bought. I then went to the printer and typed out your standard sick note, stuck the signed plain paper into the printer so when the note printed my dad's signature would appear at the bottom. I will probably tell my dad this at some point because I'm actually kinda proud of myself for pulling it off. When I was 13, a friend of mine used to steal his mom's muscle relaxers and split them with me, at school, and some of those days I would have my dad pick me up because I wasn't feeling too great. But I did indeed feel great. My mom let my friends all come over the night after graduation. Believe it or not, she got together with the other moms for us to have a little party, complete with a few malt beverages and beer. We gave my mom all our keys. We turned up the music. We got out a table. We proceeded to play D&D all night. My mom still thinks we got drunk. My parents were both out of town but left the car with keys in the kitchen. Anyway, I was 16, just learned how to drive, and this girl texted me to come to pick her up and come back to my place. 10 minutes later I'm grabbing the keys and driving across town in a car that I shouldn't be in with no license. They are never gonna find that one out. I was trying to convince my dad to buy me a new computer for college. He doesn't exactly like the fact that I play video games due to the Asian/Middle Eastern mentality of study till you die, but I'd been doing it for so long he begrudgingly accepted it after realizing it wasn't just a phase. However, he made it clear that he would only buy a computer for the express purpose of helping me get a computer science degree. Shocker, right? Unfortunately, he wasn't tech savvy at all. So I searched online stores until I found a laptop that I wanted to replace my old shitty one with. It was an $800 Asus gaming laptop with middle-of-the-road specs for the time. There was no way he would ever buy me a laptop that was built for the express purpose of gaming. So I used the inspect element to replace all instances of the word gaming on the product page with the word studying, and made sure not to reload the page when showing it to him. It would change the words back into gaming. It worked, and within 1 week I got my new studying computer. My time to shine. In my senior year of high school I snuck out of the house at like 2 a.m. to get some. My parents were a little psycho and put bells on the front and back doors. You know, in case of burglars. But they didn't put them on the laundry room door, which led to the garage. The garage had a side door in it that lead outside. So obviously that was my way out. The problem with that side door is that it's a bit hard to tell when it's locked, since you can always get out but not necessarily back in. So, me being stupid and horny, I just assumed it was fine and went along my merry way. Did the deed. Then when I tried to get back in I found the door locked. Shit. I tried every other possible entrance. All locked. But I had my phone and an idea so crazy it just might work. I called my mom and in my best helpless daughter's voice cried, "Mommy, I woke up in the front yard and the door is locked. I'm so scared." She came right out and got me. I mumbled something about sleepwalking. Then she made me waffles since I was so distressed. My mom still tells the story of a family get-together. I now have a reputation as a crazy sleepwalker. TL, doctor got laid, lied to my mom, then she made me waffles. When I got my first cell phone, a Nexus 5, my parents kinda went nuts with the whole plugged in and turned off in the living room at night thing. Knowing them, it was probably an anti-porn measure. Unfortunately, or them, my 3DS had a half-decent internet browser. A friend from high school and I snuck out with her boyfriend who could drive when I was 14, she was 15. He let her drive the car and she crashed it. It was his dad's car, his car apparently being in the shop. I didn't really get too hurt besides some bruises, but we had to walk 7 miles home at 3 a.m. We got home right before anyone got up. When I was about 15, I took half an eighth of mushrooms and maybe 8 or more quercetin pills and went downstairs to watch a movie with my parents. My parents were always fighting back then, they really hated each other and I hated them as well, but for some reason, that night was very pleasant. We were all laughing and joking and having a genuinely good time. Meanwhile, the walls around them were breathing and the carpet was swirling beneath me. I was having trouble focusing on their faces, that would be the quercetin, but I wasn't in the least bit paranoid that they may know I was high. It was an extremely strange night. My dad and I are friends now and we've talked about our drug use when we were younger. He was getting high in his room while I was getting high in mine. And angrily taking my weed when he caught me and smoking it himself. Apparently my mom was the one who was an adamantly anti-drug. Dad just put on a show for her sake. But for some reason, I've never mentioned that night to him. I sneaked out a few times to have alone times with a high school girlfriend. Only got caught once. Modern cars are so quiet, teenagers now just don't know the struggle of trying to keep an old slant six from waking your parents. I used to intern at a radio station. One day, I told my parents that I was going to go early to sit in on an editorial meeting. Instead, I took a bus an hour south to interview a felon about her experiences with solitary confinement and prison debt for a piece I was working on. They think this interview took place at the station. If they found out the truth now, they would probably get a heart attack. Snuck out of the house with a friend, while I was staying over with her, to meet a group of boys. She hooked up with one of them in a truck while the rest of us, me and the other 2 guys, hung around in the desert at night trying not to notice the truck rocking back and forth. I must have been 14 or so. Never did anything like that before or since. I went with her BC. I was afraid she'd get in trouble with the boys by herself, so I wanted to watch over her. We got caught by her parents who told me they were going to tell my parents. I prepared to be grounded for life. Then her dad changed his mind and told me I was a good kid and he would let this one go, but we had better not sneak out of his house again. Needless to say, he went through this a lot with his daughter. I never told my parents and never will lol. And I'm 28 now. I'm not proud of this, anymore, but after I realized that my parents had stashed all the liquor behind the washer and dryer, I totally started taking a few shots here and there. Once my friends found out I had access to my parents' redneck liquor cabinet, we overdid it one weekend at the beach. And I panicked because this time I knew my parents would notice. But I also had to pee, and there were no public restrooms at that beach. So I went behind a sand dune and peed in a fast food cup, then poured it back into my dad's mostly empty rum bottle. Drunken teenage logic decided that I'd had enough rum that day, that I had just been borrowing it from good old dad. So I gave it back. I'll never know if my parents used the rum for anything, but what I can say for sure is that they attended a party every January and brought their own homemade brew which was part rum. I looked up porn on the family computer because I knew they'd blame my brother. He was an asshole and we didn't get along. So whenever he'd piss me off, I'd look up porn. I didn't even watch it, just Google some tits so it would show on the search history. One time he ruined my school project, so I looked up some bondage and really torturous BDSM stuff. Then when my mom went through the search history, she'd find it, tell my dad, and they'd freak out on him. They never knew it was their Catholic school attending daughter being a spiteful shit. When I was 17, I would go to visit my friend's sister at her college. I told my mom we were doing innocent activities like seeing movies and going to dinner. Really, I was getting wasted with my 19-year-old boyfriend who also went to school there. I never planned to tell my mom, but she picked me and my now husband up from a wedding this summer. We were pretty drunk and he says, "This is how drunk we used to get when I first met you." Thanks, honey. When I was 18, I flew to Portugal to meet my boyfriend at the time, who was over there for the summer. One day we decided to fuck it, this particular city is cool but let's go exploring. So we packed up our belongings, walked out to the edge of the city, and started hitchhiking. About a week and a half later we've passed through Portugal, Spain, and most of France, and my scumbag boyfriend decides he needs to find himself or some bullshit and dumps me in a petrol station in eastern France. So I wind up staying with some lovely Buddhists who are on a retreat in the mountains, then hitch various lifts back to Spain, and fly home. When I got home my parents asked me if I got up to anything fun. I said we did some traveling by train. I'm almost 30 now and it's still a secret. It's an interesting story, but I was so fucking lucky it went relatively okay. I could have been one of those kids who goes missing or gets murdered. I used to steal and snort my mom's painkillers. Initially to try to understand why she did it / how she experienced life. After 2 weeks I noticed I was walking around like a zombie the way she had my whole life. Haven't touched the little devil since. Mid-teens, went to an unsupervised birthday party with a mixed group of friends, boys and girls. A birthday girl wants to play truth or dare. Ha ha ha, cute. Right? It got grown up real fast. Long story short, we all watched each other have sex. Bonus, years later my brother dated the random girl I nailed. He brought her over to meet the family. We recognized each other but said nothing. I just shared a horrifying silence. When they were leaving, I heard my brother ask her if she got to meet me. She replied, "Oh yeah, I got to meet him." I cringed, and have never stopped cringing. I used to sneak out and do stupid stuff with my friends in the neighborhood. Not drugs or drinking, but stealing stop signs, egging a house once, laying on the golf course, and shooting the shit. I honestly thought my folks knew about it and that they were just of the kids will be kids mentality. I even got a ride home with the local police once or twice. But no, my parents had no fucking clue what I was up to. I don't want to tell them, not because I worry about what they think of me, but rather that they would blame themselves for not seeing it. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.